Hello and welcome to part 2 of this Kelly 50. So if you remember in part 1 we had this amp in because it was blowing fuses, and it turned out to be the diodes that were blown in it, or one of the diodes was blown, not all of them, just one. So we repaired that and got this amp up and running, but this amp still has quite a few problems. So in this episode we are going to sort them all out one way or another. So let's get it out of its case so we can have a closer look. So as we can see in here, there's the two diodes that will replace. This is a full wave rectification on here. Just two diodes, not a bridge rectifier. And what else? Wire had fallen off here. The power cord we had to cut off because it was just so huge on this. So we've got sort of power cord out. You'll have to excuse my voice. If you watched the part 2 Sound City video, you'd have realised that I wasn't very well, and I'm afraid I've had the dreaded lurgy, so I'm just recovering from it now. So if my voice sounds a bit groggy or I'm sniffling away, you'll know why. Anyway, enough about me. Let's get on to the amp. So we've got some work to do here, just get these sorted out. We looked at that before. This dropping resistor here maybe as well. We need to just lift that up a bit. And we've got these two capacitors to change here. That looks like that's on the bias. That's being changed. Probably change the bias diode. We'll change these because they look a bit worse for wear. They're going rusty. And what else? Yes, I was going to remove this bit of a botched work here. These 100 ohm, sorry, these 1 ohm, not 100 ohm. These 1 ohm resistors that's been soldered in. We're going to look at all of this on here, this preamp section. And if we go in, so if we look in here, you can see these have been changed. These bypass caps, 47 at 63 volts. Those have been changed. But we've got some bypass capacitors here to check. This probably wants changing. And we'll look at these as well. There's a couple here. Check these resistors. We'll make a start. Right, that's got that board finished, and just gone over it with some alcohol. That's just drying off. Just got rid of all the flux and stuff that we got there. So we've changed these two. The dropping resistors fell. The balancing resistors they fell to bits while I was taking the caps out. So they were both shot. So we've got a couple of 220k metal oxides in there. Change the diode for the bias. I've not changed the resistor for the bias yet because obviously we've got to bias the tubes. So the next thing we're going to do is this area here, these two caps. So we've got a 270 ohm resistor going across there. I presume that's between plate and screen. And you can see we just need to address this here, which is just not soldered properly. This here, and the whole way this resistor's been just put in here. We need to check these. They're also carbon comp, so we might replace those. 47k there, and just thread these through the hoilers as well and sort that out. Right, so I've got these disconnected, or one of them disconnected. I've partly started connecting the other one up, and then realised that they were loose, and the brackets are tightened full up there. You can see that's just come out, so I'm gonna have to sort that out as well. The other one's loose, the same, so Yes. Job 39B. Right, going over here, you can see I've secured the caps properly now. Brought this wire through here. I've cleaned all of this off. I've tinned it all the way across with solder. But we've gone through the hole there, through the hole, got that in nice and solid. Changed these 3 resistors so they stood up and not on the chassis, and that one was too tight into the pins. It was catching on the sides there. That sand resistor, which is that one, just they need to be up to get some air around them. So we've got that done, that one there, and then down to there. So got 300. That was a 270, but I didn't have one. That's a 300. It should be okay. If it's not, we'll have to change it, but it should. I can't see that being a problem. Then we've got 22k, 47k there, so that's all done. Would have liked to have peeled these wires back properly, but they're just no more length on them. So, but yeah, it's in, it's done, and it's now solid and safe. These are really solid now, so that's sorted. Now I'm going to change these. They're looking a bit grubby, but they're also only 470 ohms when I looked at them. So we've got these to go in there. These are 1k, and those will do nicely in place of those. So those are the next thing. While I'm doing that, I'm going to remove these resistors that have been put in here, and then that's just about done, the power supply, I think. And we can move on to the preamp stage. So just in looking at this, and look here. There we go. That's just been wedged in there slightly, waiting to go rolling around. I'll get that out there. So these resistors have been put on, as I said, to measure the bias, but I'm just going to remove them because I'm just going to put it back to original and just use the shunt method to bias it. There's nothing wrong with them if the resistors are 100% accurate, but it's all a little bit botching there, so I'm going to clean that up and get rid of those. Right, just got this one out. This one wasn't even connected at one end, it was just in for show. I think. I don't know whether that's connected up or not. It doesn't look like it, but it just fell off anyway, so I can't even see it. Is that right up inside there? I think they soldered that to the... I think that's been soldered to the jack socket. No, it can't. No, it's not. No. What is that under there? How on earth did they get the soldering iron in there without burning the socket? They obviously didn't, so that's obviously why it's not being connected. Right, got the resistors on there, screen resistors. Sorted all this out here, and I've just brought a wire around there to here to ground this one, because the pin, the grounding point, is right up inside there, and to do that right, you've got to take the sockets out, and otherwise you're just going to burn them all with the iron. So that's all the power supply done now, apart from the power cable, which we've got to fit. So now we're going to move on to this section here. So we're going to go across here and test all these resistors. Some have been changed by the look of it. I'm not sure whether those have been changed. We're going to change the plate resistors. We've got some 3 resistors under there. If I remember off the last one, they're mixer resistors. And I might just change all these capacitors anyway. There's not that many, is there? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 there. That one will be shot more than likely. So there's not a massive amount of them. Let's test through these resistors and see. Let's just see. Get rid of that. Test these resistors and see if they're any good. So think we'll just change these plate resistors anyway, because as I've said before, you know, that's my deal on old plate resistors. But yes, that seems on the money. So does that one. What's that? Put some bigger glasses on. Can't read that. Oh, they're 100k. Duh. Well, you can't argue with those. One's a little bit over. What's that? 68k? 68k, 220k. Yeah. That is 10k. Sorry, that's 100k, not 10k. 220k. 220k. My word, we've not found a bad one yet, have we? 2.2k. Ooh. 2.2k. Yeah, 2.2. Just check that one again. Yep. Oh, yes, he's a little over, isn't he? He's 119. What about his friend next door? He's right on the money. $2.2. Yeah, there's just one then, which is that one there. That one needs to be changed. He's a little over. Just cut him out so we know he's got to be changed. This cap, is this cap cracked, or is that just a seam on it? It's a seam, but yes. So that's not looking too bad in there, is it? Not bad at all. I think these will be 47s. These two here, I believe, these two capacitors here, just hone in. These two are for the output tubes, I think. So is this that's, yeah, because that is a screen resistor. Let's just sorry, a grid stopper going into the output tube. Let's just test his loins, and he's looking good as well. And there's another one here on this piece of wire with this rather, not quite sure who's done that. Look at that. This is what I mean about safety issues. We just put the lens on. So if we look in here, you can see, let's get close in, this is just slid on here loosely, and it could easily be unslid, and look at that, boom, that's onto the bias. It's not great, so we need to address that, don't we? And look at that. So yeah, we just need to J-hook that and do it properly. But that's factory, as far I think that's factory. I could be wrong, I might be wrong, but if it has been done, it's been a long time ago. Although those resistors don't really match up with these, do they? So maybe somebody's put those on at some time. But yeah, that just needs a bit of looking at, doesn't it? Not to, oops, bang the camera, but no problem, we can sort that. Right, we've got all the caps in now. I've totally recapped this, just gone for it, and probably a good thing, because some of those grey radio spares caps, these coupling caps, one of them just dropped a bit, so they were obviously getting a bit decrepit. Now I've also put the power cord in, and if you're working on one of these, there's just a few things that you need to be aware of when you're putting the power cord in. So these gland things now, I've started turning them the other way around because they protrude out and you can't get the back panel on a lot of the time. We had that on the Sound City and I had to swap it. I didn't mention that on the video, I forgot, but I had to turn that round. Now I could have just brought this cable straight across to the switch there, and then peel back the Artiflex, but it would have been lying straight across this resistor here. And the problem with that is that should this resistor burn up due to high current in the amp, if there's a fault, it could burn through the power cable, and well, then you'd have a mishmash of AC and DC and all sorts happening. So and these need air, they're dropping resistors, you know, they have got current across them, they need air around them. The second thing is on this amp is that why have I got this up like this and these pulled across here like that? Well, the bolts for the to bolt the chassis and go through there, so be careful if you're thinking, well, I'll just go around the edge here and come in and make it nice and neat, because when you screw the bolts in the chassis, you'll screw them straight through the power cord, or it's possible that you could do so pinning it into the, you know, into the bottom of the cabinet, or you could just shave them as you're going through with the bolts. Quite easy to do. And there's also another one here, which is why again I've moved these across, because, and what I've done is I've just tie wrapped them onto these wires so it can't get across there, and that I've just stood that up, and you can just see through there, the bolt will just come through. A bit tricky that, to make that safe. That's just one thing to watch if you're working on one of these amps. And really any of these type of chassis, you know, always look where the bolts come through before you thread any wires around the edges, because it's people have done that. I do know of instances where they've put the bolts through and they've just shaved the power cord there, switched on, and poof goes the fuse. So I'm going to have a clean up now and get the vacuum cleaner in here, and obviously put the tubes back in, because I've had to drill for this here for the ground, so I've had to take all the tubes out to do that. And I'm going to have a tidy up, just tidy the bench up, and then we're going to get this up and fire it and see what we get, see if it all works okay. Right, I've just suddenly realised here, you know, so this fuse is on the negative line, look at this, but this grounding is, this ground bus set out here is just atrocious. So I'm going to change all of this, because we're going to put that on the positive line, and we're going to change all this ground bus here. So we had, and I just realised that what's actually put me onto this, I was just doing some testing, realised that we'd got no ground on here, and the centre tap is there, that's the centre tap, we've got no ground. And if we remember, there was a strand, just a little strand of wire there going down, and that was the ground, that was grounding all of that. None of this is grounded, absolutely garbage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this here, remove all of that. I'm going to then solder this down to here, so that's grounded. I'm going to take the ground from the capacitors here, which is on there, and we're going to take that across to here. So there's a wire here coming in, if we look, there's a wire there, a ground bus there, and that is that ground bus. That I think, is that the centre tap for the filaments? Yeah, that's the centre tap for the filaments. So we're grounded there, but we're not grounded here. So we'll ground down to there and ground these. We'll cut that off somewhere there, like that, and then we'll in fact maybe a bit less, we'll just yeah, come down to there. Let's cut some more off. In fact, just to make it more secure, let's cut it there. Right, so we get rid of that, and that's gone like so. The rest of that will be coming off with the soldering iron, because it'll be we'll be moving that onto the live feed side, aren't we? So that needs to come off of there. It's just been laid across, awfully botched that is. Yeah, they certainly didn't go to town when they was making this amplifier. He doesn't want to come off, does he? Put it off now. That's it. That's how to remove him. So we'll just do that. That's him gone. That's it. We'll remove him as well. Because that wire's just been removed completely and a new one's going on. So that sorted that out. So we've got a ground there. So, in fact, thinking about it, you know, I think what we'll do is we'll cut. So tidy this up. We'll cut this ground off here and off here. Leave that grounder to that post, and then re-ground these on here, so that, and then take this capacitor and ground it here as well. Yeah, that's the best thing to do. So we'll lose that as well. And then we haven't got all this messy, wow, it doesn't want to cut, that's tough stuff to cut, but it's cut it. These aren't the most powerfulest cutters. Let's cut that there like that, and then remove that from there, all of that rubbish, so we don't want that in there. Get rid of that, and that looks much better already. And then what we'll do with what we've got here, with this here, we'll cut that there, and we'll just cut that there like so. We'll send the center tap over for this filaments over to here as well on this point here. So we'll have the caps grounded here, these caps grounded here, filament grounded here, and then what we'll do is we'll ground this whole section here elsewhere. We'll tighten this pot up as well. Maybe put a ground point in there, or even at this end. But yeah, and that's tidied up that ground scheme no end. It's an awful mess that was, really, just a mess. And that's much tidier now. I've got rid of all of that. It's all bent, twisted, and moving around, and not secure. You need the ground points secure. Ahoy, me hearties! That looks much better. We've got rid of all this crap, all this grand bus thing. So I'll just show you what we've done. We've wired from the diodes there to the tip of the fuse. That's the live feed for these caps. That's the choke that's wired on there, you can see. And we've grounded these speaker sockets here, so they've been grounded there. What else? We've grounded the ground bus down onto here with a separate ground. Can you see that there? We're just looking over there. Yeah, you can just see that. So we've grounded that. We've grounded the center tap onto the star ground, because we've made a star ground there, you can see. So the filaments are on there, these caps are on there, the center tap's on there, filament center tap that is, and then we've got the star ground on there as well, on the ground from these capacitors. So that looks much neater. It's just much better all around now. And now the fuse is on the live side, which is where it wants to be. So that means we are now ready to power this beast up. Right, we've just switched on. We've got meter monitoring the plate voltage there, and just up on the top shelf we've got one monitoring the bias, which has just popped negative 11, 12 now. So there we go. We're just going to run this up steadily on the bulbs, so we're not giving these caps a thrapes. Bring them up steady. That's going up nicely. got 107 volts going into the amp. 30 watts of bulbs, that's up to 40 watt, 55 watts. I'll take it up some more. Bias is looking good at negative 25. There we go, we've got sound already. That's good. Yeah, that's sounding good. Very good. And that is quiet. Right. Up we go. So we've got 100 watts of current limiting now. Yes, that's excellent. You can hear the tubes beginning to conduct. Negative 30, 200 volts going into the amp, 368 plate volts. That's beginning to drop a bit now, the plate volts, because we're getting good conductance from the tubes. I'll go to 140 on the bulbs. Looking good. Let's go to 200. Ooh. That transformer's a little noisy. They might have to tighten up those bolts. Oh yes. Yes it is. So we'll have to have a look at that. So a few problems still emerging here and there. Negative 33 on the bias, so that's looking reasonably healthy because we're not off the current limiter yet. Let's go off the current limiter. Oh, look at that transformer now, my word. $435 now, we've got negative 35. Now I've turned the volume down. Wow. Yep, so we need to look at that, don't we? In fact, we'll look at that now. Let's just shut down and we'll see if we can't tighten that up. Right, they've been tightened up with a couple of star washers on. Let's try again and see what we've got. So we'll just put the current limiter on at 200 watts of bulbs, just fire up. Shouldn't be any problems. It'll surge on the bulbs and they've gone down. So yeah, that transformer sounds quiet now. So I tested the tubes on this amp and they've still got some life in them, but they don't test like new. The preamp tubes are around 60-70%, and well, funnily the output tubes are the same. But of course we don't know whether they match yet because we've not done the bias. Right, let's flick off the current limiter. Yes, that transformer's silent now, so we fixed that. That's excellent. So that's all looking good. Negative 35. Well, those tubes don't seem to be running hot particularly. That's pretty good. Excellent. Right, well I think we can, let's check the bias then and see what where we are with that. Right, we connected up on the first tube, current limiter's on, current limiter off. Let's use the current limiter when we're connecting things up. So let's see what this tube's got to offer us then. So 1.3 volts. Now I've done the readings earlier on this transformer, and the amp's front facing and left and right. So left tube is 66.5 ohms and the right tube is 61 ohms. So we'll give that a minute just to warm up because we've had him off the current limiter. And I think he's about there, isn't he, at 1.6 volts. So we need to do a spot of maths on that then, don't we? We'll call that 1.6. 1.6 divided by 66.5. We've got a measly 24 milliamps there. So this is biased quite cold. Well, that tube is at least. That's measly and not enough for what we want. And the plate voltage is 433, 432. So if we times, that's only at 10.39 watts. So are those tubes just tired? It would seem so. That's very low, very cold. That's biased. Right, let's check the other tube. Right, the current limiter is back off again, and we've got the other tube on that's on the other side, and he's up to 1.8. Kind of get the impression that these tubes are not drawing a lot of current, which means we're going to have to change the bias resistable. That one's nearly up to 2 volts, so looking at that, that's my phone. Yeah, 1.96 and still climbing. So you can see they're very lazy, these tubes, the way that they're actually conducted, which is a sign that they might be a little bit on the tired side, but they're very mismatched now. And that's nearly up to 2 volts, still going. And bearing in mind that this has been running for a while now, we put the current limiter on while I was changing the probes over, but that's only been for a minute, something like that, and from the time that's been off and back on, while that current limiter's been on and then off again, it's took that tube a good while to get up there. In fact, it almost looks like it's running away very slowly, but that's considerably higher now than the other one. I think we've just about reached its peak. Yep, so we'll call that 2 volts. So 2 divided by, let's see what we've got on the other tube. 61. I've got less resistance on there as well. Yeah, 32 milliamps. So we've got 8, in fact that's 32.7 milliamps. So that's almost 9 milliamps more than the other tube. So if we times that by the plate voltage, 40 watts, so they're miles out. Yes, miles out those. 10.3 and 14.13. 10.39 watts, so 10.4 watts and 14.1 really. So yeah, they're 4 watts out. And the battery's just gone in the finishery, whatever it is. Right, so we've got the new tubes in, and I dropped the 47k resistor to 43k, and look at that, 17.5 watts. I don't know how I do it. I don't. That's unbelievable. So there we go. They seem pretty well biased. I'm just going to check the other side and make sure that we're matched and okay, but that all looks good to me. And the other side is 17.3, and that rhymes with that will do for me. So there we go, biased up. You can see that resistor's cocked up there because I've soldered it in, but now I'm going to solder it in properly. It's soldered in properly, but I'm going to make it tidy. That's what I mean, because obviously I thought I might have to take it out again. So but yes, we'll make that tidy, and we'll call that a wrap on the output tubes. Right, so we're drawing 350 milliamps off the wall socket, off the mains there, and it's all looking good. All looking good, apart from our friend the preamp tube. He's not looking good. So here's the next thing in fact here's the last thing to address. You can see we've got the resistor soldered in neatly now there, and everything looks much neater in this amp than it did before getting rid of that horrible ground bus. It really was dreadful, and yeah, that's much tidier. Right, got the Kelly all back in its case, and it's sounding pretty dang good. Checked it all out on the scope, it all looks good. So through the bass channel, to this channel, but then it's for guitar rather than bass. Very nice tone, this amp. You take all the treble off. Quite a warm tone on there. It's a really nice amp. This is, sounds great, really good. It's not quite in the case properly yet. I don't know whether these bolts, the customer said something about getting some new bolts for this. I don't know whether these are quite the right bolts, and they appeared to be the wrong thread, so I've just gently tightened them up to where they've shown a bit of resistance and left them, so not quite in the cabinet level. There's a bit of a gap here, so they're not the right bolts, or I don't know, but anyway, the customer will sort that out. He'll sort the bolts out for that. He's covered the cabinet and sorted it and everything. So there we go. So that'll do it for this one. It's been a fun project, this one. I think it's been great, and you know, I did see some photographs of this amp before it was covered, and it was in a bit of a state. And it also was in a bit of a state inside as well, but now it's a really tasty looking amp, and it should last a good 15 or 20 years before it needs servicing again. So that'll do it for this one. Thanks for watching. You all take care, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye for now.